Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 57 for June 14th, 2017. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, joined again with Zach Bowden for another summer Windows Central podcast. I say that because news is slowing down, but that doesn't stop us, even though the fact it's Burger Friday for me and I'd rather be eating a hamburger right now. But that's okay because I'm here with you, lovely people. Thank you again for joining us. We're always grateful for you guys tuning in live. And if you're not tuning in live, you're listening to this hopefully in your car, driving to work. Don't get distracted. We will be covering this week's news with Microsoft and the Windows 10 ecosystem, including talking about, of course, some new Windows 10 builds as we prep for the Fall Creators Update. We're going to talk about Windows 10s 1 month on and my experiences there, as well as Zach's experiences with the Surface laptop. I do have a funny, horrible story to talk about the Surface laptop too, as a warning to others. We'll also talk about the firmware fix that finally came out for Surface Pro for a problem that the media really wanted to be much bigger than it was. It was really a tiny thing, although it was annoying, but it seems to be fixed now. We'll also talk about the HP Spectre X2 review I did. So if you always wanted a Surface Pro, but you just can't bring yourself to spend that money, I think HP has a viable solution for you. Speaking of HP, their Elite X3 phone, one of the few Windows 10 mobile devices that I'm still rocking. Actually, I have one right here. Got a new firmware after a few months. This is its sixth one. And finally, we talk about the Alcatel Idol 4 Pro, also known as the 4S in the States. It is now available in Europe, and we'll see about Zach. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I'm not too bad. I have just realized we are streaming at 1080p 60 frames, which is overkill for this show, but it's a good test to see how well my internet holds up streaming to two services at the same time. So hopefully the stream is not struggling for anybody.
I have to actually admit the stream looks good on my end here.
It looks good on my end too, so
which is a first. So maybe everybody is on ball today. Small story, because now I'm in a house. Wi-Fi is still not very awesome. Despite my $300 massive router, which looks like it could, I call it the the router god or something like that. Because I think it sent a signal to God if you wanted. But yeah, I still had to get a second line installed downstairs for my Xbox because it's mostly Sling. I love Sling, but their streaming ability is not, it's funny. Sling will buffer and have issues, it's stuttering and stuff over Wi-Fi, but then I can go stream 4K Netflix without a hitch. And so that is just proof positive that Sling and their technology, and this goes for Hulu too, they're not as good as Netflix, right? Netflix has their game down, which was funny because years ago Netflix was in that same situation, but I'm fingers crossed. I'm now on Sling for, I don't have cable, I just use Sling and their DVR capabilities, and so I'm kind of testing that out. But yeah, side rant there. But all right, let's talk about new builds. We got a new build this week.
So I mean, this is kind of the norm now for most weeks. Another Insider Preview build. This one, not much to talk about, just the fact that it exists. It's a smaller release compared to previous, especially for mobile. This one for mobile had literally 3 fixes, none of which were major fixes, so it was a non-story for most people. A couple of additional improvements for the desktop build. They've refined the acrylic material used throughout some of the new apps and areas within the system, so it's a little bit less noisy now. Some people were complaining about it looking a bit too grainy. Now it looks little bit less grainy, which I guess is good or bad news depending on who you are and what you preferred.
Yeah, so that was kind of funny because Jen Gentleman tweeted out before and after, which I always appreciate because it's, you actually get to see what the differences are. But someone pointed out there's more color banding now because of less noise. I don't know. I found it funny because when I looked at those before and after images, I was like, I could barely tell the difference, and I find it more hilarious that people were like, fix this. But that's me.
Right. And apart from that, that's pretty much it. There's a new sort of activity area for updates within the Settings app, which continuously measures your available bandwidth during downloading and dynamically adjusts the amount of bandwidth used in the background to ensure these downloads won't interrupt your use of your device, which is actually kind of clever if you think about it. So for those of you who have slightly slower internet connections, for example, if there are updates to install in the background, previously Windows Update would just take as much internet as possible from you. And so if you're watching a video or something, it would slow down the video, make it buffer or something. But now That's not the case. So it will now be smart enough to say, hi, I can see you're streaming a video from YouTube. We'll give you the internet you need for that, and we'll use less internet for the time being to download our updates, which is nice because people hate updates on Windows 10, surprisingly. But yeah, so
I still don't get that.
I know. So yeah, pretty much a nice refinement build, lots of small things. Now we are heading towards the end of development now, which is why these builds are getting less and less exciting. As we've talked about in the past, no timeline, no cloud clipboard coming in this release, even though Microsoft said it was. I know people on Twitter seem to dispute this fact, saying Microsoft said starting with the full creator. Listen, they said it was coming in the full creators update. They cut it from this release because they weren't going to finish it in time, which is fine. It's totally fine. But yeah, it's not coming now. So from here on out, smaller changes and features being put into these builds up until release, and then with Redstone 4, which I guess was, I would imagine it's already started development actually. But when it hits Insiders, which will be sometime in October, I'd imagine, or maybe late September, if we're lucky, that's when we'll start seeing some new big features again, which is pretty.
We can also talk about my second largest feature that is now coming to the Fall Creators Update, which is they've capitalized the second letter or the second word under settings, which just goes up there with the emoji picker for me as the biggest things that people should care about in their OS update that's coming in the fall. But yeah, if you ever notice, if you go into your Windows settings, it says like update and security for some odd, weird reason is lowercased. That is now uppercase. And I don't know. I just think it's funny because there was clearly a discussion there, and I'm glad someone went like, "Why the heck are we doing this?" Like,
right.
Everything else is capitalized, but the second word, we're like, no, because I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, Windows 10 suffers from a lot of that, just weird sort of inconsistencies. Yeah. And I worry that with the full Creators Update, it's going to get slightly worse because with them introducing the Fluent Design System and it not being entirely implemented with Redstone 3, we're going to have a third design language in the mix of MDL2 and ancient Windows design language.
That's one way of looking at it. I would say it's not a third design language because I don't think there was one before. I feel like this is like filling in the gap of the lack of a design language. And so, yeah, there will be a transition phase, which I think you're accurately describing, where we'll see some apps with this stuff and some without. But for me, actually, the animations and everything else feels like it's definitely coming together a little bit more with this update, where I feel like they are putting on visual UI polish to apps and everything. I managed to get in Groove, for some reason it's hit or miss. It's A/B testing, I guess. They do have a MIDI mode now for Groove, so when you're playing music, you can, like in Skype and the movies and TV app, you can minimize it, and it creates a little tiny window in your corner, and you can move this around and make it bigger and smaller, but the idea is it's always on top, like an overlay, and you can control your music, and it's really nifty. Like Groove just looks so pretty in Windows 10, and especially with the Creators Update, especially with the acrylic and everything like that. I just find like some of their apps, the inbox apps, are just really outstanding looking. I'd still like to see news get updated. Like I feel like the MSN News app is still, I mean, it's fine, but it just feels like it could use a little bit more polish. Maybe some more visual flair.
I agree. I do think there are some areas of the apps at least which could be doing with some updates. I mean, the Groove Music app is probably one of the better looking Windows 10 apps out there, but there is still room for improvements. For example, as we saw in the concepts, in some of the Groove concepts for Fluent Design, the app is borderless, which means there's no title bar. All of the elements go straight to the top through the title bar, and that isn't implemented yet. Once they implement that into Groove, I think it will be the best looking app on Windows 10. But until they do that, it's kind of just the title bar at the top makes everything just look a little bit off. It looks great in tablet mode because obviously that gets rid of the title bar anyway.
Well, the title bar is supposed to be going, right? So that should be fading into the acrylic stuff. We saw in their at Build, they did show the title bar basically does go away, which that I think will make. Yeah, that is definitely a legacy UI thing that sort of needs to disappear.
I hope with the release of the full Creators Update, we do see a lot of that Fluent Design stuff that they showed off in those sessions at Build. If you're unaware, Microsoft had like a Fluent Design session after the main event where they sort of dove into several of their first party apps and said, "Hey, this is what we're doing with Fluent Design within our own apps." And we're yet to see any of them really show up for Insiders. We've seen the Calculator app show up. We've seen Groove Music, obviously, and Voice Recorder, although the Voice Recorder app's kind of buggy with Fluent Designs. But we're still missing it from Mail. We're missing it from Microsoft Edge. We're missing it from the Store app. We're missing it from several of Microsoft's key apps in Windows 10. So hopefully,
Store app has a little bit of it, but
it could do
Outlook.
more.
Yeah, surprisingly, Outlook doesn't have anything, which is weird.
So
Outlook was one of the first ones I got the option for a background.
Mm-hmm, right. So I am hoping that in time for the full Creators Update, or at least around its launch, they will also push apps that have all this new Fluent Design stuff, because at least it will make the consistency between design elements a lot more sort of everywhere, whereas right now it's very patchy, I'd say. But that's, fine. We're still in development or whatever else, so we've still got a few weeks left, or several weeks left before that becomes an issue. And
also, if you really want to see what I think is some excellent execution, this stuff, grab the MyTube beta app. So it's totally free. You can search for it on our site, or if you get the MyTube app from the store, because you can't search for it in the store, it's hidden. But if you get the MyTube app, you can go into the About, and I think there's like a download link for it within his About, but you can find the link, download it, it's free. And he's putting a lot of this stuff into the app right now, and it's so good looking. Like he really knows how this stuff should look, and I still find like MyTube is to be one of the best examples of Fluent design, and just we talk about this even on Windows 10 Mobile. MyTube and some of the YouTube apps, and same with Reddit apps too. I use Redund, which is a really good one, and also has some of this Fluent design stuff in it now, are some of the best examples of Windows 10 development, because these apps are better on anything on Android and iOS or Mac OS or whatever you're using. And they're just really good. The MyTube app is like, for years, people used to complain, like, why doesn't, Google release an official YouTube app? And it's like, when you have something like MyTube, I'm sorry, Google they could not make an app better than that. It does things, first of all, that official YouTube apps don't do. And it's just a really awesome example, I think, of what the developer community can do on its own when it comes to these apps.
Yeah, no, MyTube is a very good example. I see what the day Fluent Design has made it in Windows 10 is the day Microsoft adds it to their context menus. That's the bar. Once it's in context menus and File Explorer, once it's
we're
there,
still waiting on that. Yeah, for those curious, this is we hear this a lot. Like, when are they going to do File Explorer? And I think they are. They are working on doing stuff with File Explorer. In fact, you can kind of unlock the Windows 10 mobile version of it in Windows 10 for PC. But File Explorer is one of those things you don't lightly screw with, right? Like, it's such an iconic app that to Windows users that, like, I think they will update it, but they want to make sure they got it right. And it's not just like you can't release File Explorer with, like, say, 60% of its features missing, right, or even 30%. People will just lose their minds at that. So I think they need to be very careful in how they treat File Explorer.
The problem with File Explorer is that it suffers from the same problem that other developers are looking at right now with UWP, is that it's such a complex and baked-in app that they can't just switch to UWP. If they're going to build a UWP app, it's going to be from the ground up. And they can't release a UWP version of File Explorer if it's not on par with the current File Explorer. So this is why we're not seeing any major things being done to File Explorer right now. So I see Microsoft doing either two things, either just updating the File Explorer UI and keeping it as a Win32 program, which might make sense for the time being, or just not doing anything with the current one for a long time, and then one day coming out of a brand new app that they've been working on behind the scenes for however many years that is, caught up and up to date with the old File Explorer, plus with new UI and new features and whatever else. But I don't see them, anytime soon at least, releasing a UWP version of File Explorer that replaces the existing one. They might release like a beta version alongside of the desktop one at some point, but
sure,
I don't know. But that's assuming that they will switch to UWP, which I'm not entirely convinced they will for File Explorer.
They will. Everything will be UWP someday.
Someday.
It's just when that day happens. Even settings. Settings is one of those things that...
That's true. That is true. I did forget about control panel and settings.
Because, that was something that, they had us... For a long time, we lived in this dual world that you still had to go to the control panel, and then you still had settings. And that's really shifted now. Like, they're putting a lot of stuff into settings, and it works really well. I really... settings is something that I think they took a couple tries at but it's really improved. And with the Fall Creators Update, a lot of people complain about in settings, there's a lot of wasted space. And I think they like finally figured out, okay, what we can use this space for. And they're putting like cool tips in there, little advice things, and if you need more help and all that. And it's actually a smart use of that space, I think, without making it too crowded and, losing that design aspects of it. So pretty cool stuff. All right, let's talk about Windows 10 S. You and I both have Surface laptops. Mm-hmm. Actually, I have a couple. Let me tell you a quick story about Surface laptop. When we were out there, I think you might remember I asked the color for the Surface laptop. So say you get burgundy or cobalt blue, how deep does that color go? So like if you scratch it, is it going to be silver or is it going to be the color? Now, intuition tells you it'll be silver. It's really rare that they make metal color throughout. Be kind of a weird thing too, if you want to open your laptop. Well, I found out this week it is totally silver, and I was totally devastated with it. I should have taken a photo, although I still can do that. I don't have it in possession anymore because I gave it to Mark. But I was going to the office. We were shooting a video. I put it in my bag, and granted, I didn't put it into the right pouch, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I was literally going from house to car to office, like wasn't like, traveling. And I look at the bag and I pull it out, and sure enough, I had on the cover, the top lid, like some scratches and like a little chip thing, and it was silver. I nearly started crying.
Devastating.
I really, the burgundy one, like at first I was, I've told this story. It's like, oh, why did they send me this one? And like, I ended up loving burgundy. So I was like, hey, Mark, here, take this. you want one? Yeah. I'm like, so, but he's actually going to be doing some videos with it too. So that's actually practical. But now I have the cobalt blue one, so it's okay.
Oh, so you just replaced it. All good now.
Yes. The cobalt blue is...
I can't believe you broke. Like, the scratch was in the worst place possible for the laptop. Could have been underneath, on the side. Nope, right. Straight on the top.
Yep. Yeah. It was about an inch or two from the logo. It was just... You can probably put a sticker on it. You could probably get a Sharpie and maybe color it in a little bit and it would help. But yeah, in case you're wondering, they are delicate. It's metal, and this is the downside of metal. And I've had plenty of laptops that this has happened to in the past. Going through, I've talked about this before, going through the airport when you put it into that tray for scanning. Be very careful; it doesn't slide around. That plastic tray is often very rough and will put micro scratches into your device. That also happened on a Surface. I think it was Surface Pro 2 that happened to, which was black at the time, and it was the same thing with scratch through. So yeah, treat your devices well, folks. I did just review a $200 bag, which is one way to protect your device. This is where people start putting stickers on their devices, right? The laptop skins, which I'm actually not a huge fan of, but I kind of get it. Putting these on there does help protect your device. So I don't know. Just remember that, baby. You want to baby these things. But you wrote an article talking about Surface Laptop 1 month on, specifically talking about the Alcantara, how that held up. What's your thoughts so far with this device 1 month on? You don't talk about it a lot, I notice.
About the device?
Surface Laptop, yeah.
Yeah, so 1 month on, I'm still really enjoying my Surface laptop. It is possibly the best laptop I've ever owned. I did buy it as a replacement from my Surface Book, which is why I tie into the not talking about the laptop much. The laptop itself, superb. It's held up so well. The Alcantara is still not dirty. I had many people telling me that, it's going to get dirty so quickly. I'm not disgusting. So, I mean, I don't, use my laptop with really grubby hands. So my laptop is still, it looks like it's new. I mean, I'm pretty proud of and happy with the Alcantara so far. No scratches or anything, still performs really great. Battery life still amazing, obviously.
Although I should point out also, someone mentioned this because the Platinum version, that too can scratch.
Right.
It can definitely get scratches on it. It may not be as contrasty as the blue or the burgundy, but no, you can definitely damage that as well. And it can scuff. But okay, go on.
Yeah, so the laptop itself, all great so far. I didn't stick with Windows 10S, and that's not because I couldn't put out Windows 10S, because on a Windows 10 device, I normally can. The problem with Windows 10 on the Surface laptop is I bought the Surface laptop as a replacement for my Surface Book, which means that I instantly need access to like Premiere Pro, for example, or some creative apps from Adobe, which unfortunately aren't on the store, and as far as I'm aware, aren't coming to the store. So that straight away, I was screwed. I had to upgrade to Windows 10 Pro, which is fine, of course. That's not the end of the world. I also have other devices running Windows 10 unofficially, which is what I use them for. I fully agree with the Windows 10 idea on certain kind of devices. I would be very unhappy if I had bought a $2,000 computer that came with Windows 10. That would be a desktop, for example. Like if I was looking to buy a computer that had like top of the range specs, GTX 1080, 32 gigabytes of RAM, all that good stuff, and it came with Windows 10, I would be quite angry with that, because obviously none of that's going to get used on a Windows 10 install. But on devices like the Fusion 5, which I've actually got down there, which I'll be reviewing next week, where, it's got an Intel, Atom processor with 2 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gigabytes of storage. That is the kind of device where Windows 10 shines. It's where you're not going to be using heavy programs, where at most you'll be using the web browser with maybe Twitter and email and whatever else. That's where I find Windows 10 shines the most. And that's where I fully agree with it. So I upgraded the laptop to Windows 10 Pro, unfortunately, but that's just simply how it was, and put Windows 10 somewhere else. But apart from that, Surface Laptop has been perfect for me.
Nice. Yeah. I'll have an article going live on Saturday, so if you're listening to this recorded, you can find it still on the site. And if you're listening to live, check it out tomorrow, where I talk about some of the limitations of S. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be talking about the fact you can't run non-store apps. Everybody knows that. I'm going to be talking about things I learned that you can't do on Windows 10 that are because they're either bugs or because the system is still early. For instance, I have the Asus Zen screen, which I'll be reviewing soon. If you don't know about this, it's a really brilliant thing. It's a 15-inch full HD display that's portable. So like it's literally like if you took a 15-inch tablet, but there were no computer guts in it. And it has a smart cover, so it folds up and protects it. And it only weighs 1.5 pounds. And the idea here is for people like me who I right now I have 3 displays in front of me. So when I travel, no matter how good my laptop is, it's still, I find it hard going back down to one display. I know first world problems, but the way my workflow, I do need to have, or I don't need to, I prefer to have multiple displays. So this is actually a solution for that. Clearly I'm not alone. And the idea here is the smart cover folds up, does that little tent trick, and you can just prop it up, and it connects through USB Type-C to any device. Now you're immediately thinking, whoa, Pro and laptop doesn't have Type-C, Dan. So, and that's because they did such a good job here that it actually comes with a USB Type-A switch. You just connect it up, and now it connects to USB Type-A. And believe it or not, it totally works if you install the driver. And so on a Surface Pro, no problem. You go to Asus website, download the executable, run it, and it installs the driver. With Surface Laptop and Windows 10 however, it does not. And you cannot install that, which is a real bummer. Now, this is kind of an early problem. As I talk about in the article, Microsoft's long-term goal is to get all these drivers into Windows Update. And in fact, many are, which is why if you do a clean install on, say, like a new laptop, say from 2014 up, and you do it for, say, it's Samsung, say it's LG, it could be Dell, whatever. When you do a clean install, chances are, without installing anything from the manufacturer, when it goes and installs Windows, it's going to pull the drivers from Windows Update, and you'll have immediately Wi-Fi, your display will work, your touchpad will work, your keyboard will work, your audio will work, your camera will work. All these things will almost, because there's like default drivers now for those devices. And Microsoft's long-term goal is to get OEMs to have their drivers go through Windows Update. And Dell does this a bit now. HP does this too. I've seen both of their drivers come through. So this is a solvable problem. Obviously, I'm at a stage right now where Windows 10 is still new, and Asus doesn't have the drivers. And Asus didn't provide the manual drivers. Sometimes you could do like the INF and like tell the OS to go here and just pull in it. And I'm curious if that would work. I don't know. But since they didn't give me the drivers, I manually can't do it. And so there are little quirks like that. You also found out, of course, you can't run things like command or regedit, which is kind of interesting. that totally makes sense from a security perspective. Like, why have a secure OS if I can just go to the registry and just start like hacking away stuff? So, that's not there. Things like developer mode is not listed under settings. Also kind of makes sense. Developer mode you'd want to enable so you can sideload AppX files from the store. So you can't sideload AppX. Again, makes sense for the security stuff. But if you're a pro user, you're going to be, you may be bummed at that stuff. So I list a bunch of these. A real interesting article if you want to know about other things that are Windows 10s can't do right now.
This all sounds like terrible stuff, but you need to remember that Windows 10s isn't for professional users who would need to access this stuff anyway. Like my mother, for example, doesn't need to access the registry or CMD or need to sideload any AppXs from anywhere.
Or schools.
Or schools. Or anyone where Windows 10s is aimed at, they don't need to be accessing all of these things that are blocked. And people in our tech bubble, as Dan likes to refer to it as, people forget that. So what we're saying here all sounds like terrible things, and I'm sure all of you are appalled by Windows 10s for not being able to do any of this. But for the target audience that Windows 10s is designed for, this makes perfect sense and is totally normal. So with that in mind, I am still slightly confused why Windows 10s is on the Surface laptop. I know it's there because they announced it in the same event, and it makes sense to ship it on their device, whatever. But I feel like most people buying Windows 10s, I know it's aimed at students and whatever who wouldn't care for this stuff anyway, but for a lot of people who are buying that as well, at least the vocal side of people who are buying it are those who bought the Surface Book, for example, or a Surface Pro who are upgrading to the laptop, who do use these programs that aren't in the store. So, yeah.
I don't mind it. Like I'm still running Windows 10s. It's fine because I really like the idea behind it. Now, as we see more Centennial apps come into the store from the desktop bridge, things like Spotify and eventually iTunes, these issues will go away for a lot of people. Someone mentioned in comments, which I actually forgot about, WinHack, they did mention Microsoft's going to require all OEMs to have their drivers in Windows Update by late 2018. So really? Like I said, so all these things are sort of like will be figured out and solved. I mean, the thing with Windows 10s, I always tell people, it's like for most, even just consumers, at most, you probably install like 10 desktop apps, like executable things. If those get into the store, like there's really no reason then, like I mentioned in the article, like I wasn't able to install DNS Jumper. It's this little tiny app, that switches your DNS to a faster one. It's totally niche. Most people are not daily checking their DNS settings to make sure it's on the fastest one. I like to do it because I'm a geek, but there's no reason why the app couldn't be in the store, right? That developer could easily, it's such a tiny app that it could easily go into the store. And once it is, it's like stuff like that just won't matter to me, So all these little limitations for people who are like criticizing Windows 10s right now, in 2 or 3 years, I think most of your criticisms will be gone. Now, obviously, if you're a developer, you want to install, Bash on your device, or you want to use it for advanced programming or hacking. Obviously, Windows 10s is not for you, and that's why Windows 10 Pro will always be there. Interestingly, though, Windows 10s has more features than Windows 10 Home for like advanced networking stuff, remote desktop. It has encryption of the hard disk. These are things that the Home version doesn't have that makes Windows 10s kind of cool. So I don't know. I like it a lot, but we'll see.
Yeah, as well, it's probably worth putting out the openness of Windows 10. I say openness, like the freedom that Windows 10 offers, unlike iOS and Android, will never truly go away. Right. It may be Microsoft's goal to make it so that the Windows 10 Pro version, where in the sense that it's unlocked and you can download anything you want from anywhere and change any part of the system, whatever. Maybe Microsoft's goal is for that version to become sort of the niche version and Windows 10 to become the standard version, which I'm sure makes sense from Microsoft's eyes. I know, again, a lot of you people listening to this today will be upset to hear that, but it will never truly go away. So if you are somebody who wants the Windows 10 to be as unlocked and as available to you as possible, then Windows 10 Pro will always be there, as Dan said. But Windows 10 will, I assume, become Microsoft's sort of go-to version of Windows for most people in the long run. Again, this is like a journey that Microsoft is taking with Windows 10. We will be 2 years into the Windows 10 journey in just a couple of weeks, actually. So almost the 2-year anniversary of Windows 10 launching. And so much has changed since it first came out in 2015. So it'll be interesting to see where Windows 10 is in another 2 years, now that Windows 10S and the Surface line and obviously Microsoft's next mobile efforts, whenever that comes into play. It'll be interesting to see where Microsoft is taking the Windows 10 one core vision and whatever.
Yeah. No, I really still, I just like the store model. I just love having my apps. I love to check for updates and just downloads and install stuff. I like not, I don't know. There is that thing of like trusting stuff from the store. I'm like, there's still that weird thing of you're just downloading an executable off some janky website, and that could like, now, I mean, we have Windows Defender, which helps out, all this kind of stuff, but it is still it just seems kind of insane. And I say that because people are so used to the smartphone model. Like everybody has like an Android or an iPhone, and you just go to the store and you download stuff. Now, Android, supposedly has way more security vulnerabilities, but I still find like how people harped on Android being insecure as one of these prophecies that never really happened, right? Mm-hmm. There were small instances of worms and little security things, but there was never like, like look what happened recently with Windows and some of the ransomware stuff, right? Like that's never happened globally to like Android, where in theory it could, because there's more almost Android devices out in the market now than PCs. So I don't know. I find this model just really interesting. It is early. It's absolutely early. Microsoft gives you the option. They don't even call it an upgrade. They call it switching to Pro. I agree 100%. I think Pro is going to be, I think Pro should be that. It should be for pros,
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
I know all too many consumers are like, oh, I need Windows 10 Pro. And it's just like, yeah, you really don't actually. Windows 10 Home has most of what you need. Some of people in our audience really do need Pro, but that's a separate issue.
Right, and for those who do need Pro, will have the option to have Pro whenever they need it, because obviously Microsoft won't ever kill Windows 10 Pro. That'd be stupid beyond belief. Also, I'm at the point now in life where if an app isn't in the Windows Store, I'm moderately annoyed.
Yes.
Like, God damn it. Just put your app in the damn store. It's easy.
But I feel like it's starting to change. Like this year's actually been pretty impressive for changes in the store and improvements between, especially gaming. I think now is getting, we've talked about that before. We're seeing a lot more like big titles coming over. And we're starting to see now an uptick with Centennial desktop apps coming over. So I really excited to see how, this progresses over the next few months, but I don't know. It feels like it's coming together, but yeah, Windows 10s still early days. I don't mind it. If you do, totally fine. Just switch to Pro, problem solved. So,
yeah.
But yeah, Surface Laptop is, I like it so much, and it kind of bothers me that I like it so much, because it's like, I kind of don't get it. I did point out recently, I said the Surface Pro is probably a better buy because it's more flexible as a device. Obviously, you can do way more with pen, and it's more where this technology is going. But I'm still part of that group that still just likes laptops, and this thing is it's so fun to type on and use.
I agree. It is. It's a really nice. It's basically, as people have said before, the MacBook of Windows, and that's a compliment. I know people think it's not. It's a very much so a compliment. The MacBook is a beautiful device, and now Windows has an alternate version of it, which is great.
Yeah, and people don't get it. I mean, I used to be like this with Macs, where I never understood why people liked Mac so much, and this is a separate issue from the OS, which I still don't like Mac OS, although I appreciate where it excels, especially visually. I think it's a very pleasing kind of app, although I don't like its current design. I'm talking about like animations and fluidity. But when you, the first time you get Mac hardware and you get to play with Apple stuff, you kind of get why people are like so obsessed with it. And it just has to do with engineering. Like when you look at good engineering versus bad engineering, and you see the work that goes into perfecting a device, you start to appreciate these things. And I get it. If you've only had $600 laptops or plastic chunky things, so it's probably metal. Ooh, it's cool. Or it's one of those things. Until you actually touch it and get to use it, you kind of don't get to appreciate it. I don't know. Unless you can afford it, don't go and try it. Because if you go to the store and you see one of these devices and you start if you open that lid, you're going to start to get it. And you're like, okay, now I kind of get why people really like these things. You may not justify the price, but you're going to start to get, you'll look at your older device and be like, oh, that's gross. But yeah. Speaking of, let's talk about the Spectre, I guess. So if you can't afford a Surface Pro, totally legit. I've never said Surface was a bargain or value. I mean, if you plan on keeping it for years, for some people it really is. And if you're using a device every day, I do tell people, if you're going to use it every single day, you definitely want to be really happy with it. Sometimes it makes sense to spend that extra money. But if you just can't, Spectre X2 HP, now available on the market. This is actually a follow-up. So they released this device originally in 2015, and it was a very different device. It was silver, had thick bezels. The kickstand had a switch, so you actually had to like flick a switch to unlock it to bring it out, and it popped out. It ran a Core M processor with a full HD display. So right now, we're thinking kind of like that's like a budget sort of tablet. No more. The Spectre X2 is completely revamped. It follows a similar design language of the current Spectre X360, which I'm a huge fan of. They use a dark ash now with copper, which I get. Some people like if they find it like, what am I, a Russian czar or something like that? Like, it's like too flamboyant, but I really, really like the look of this thing. It now runs a Core i5 or Core i7 processor. What's really interesting is you can get Iris Plus graphics for the Core i7, but also for the Core i5, which you can't do for Surface. So you can get a little extra performance boost for graphics at the Core i5 level, which is pretty cool. They throw in a keyboard and pen into the box. And so you can get a Core i7 version with 16 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, PCIe too, and it's very good storage, for $1,200, which now not cheap by a long shot, but that's $600 less than what you would do with Surface Pro at that same configuration once you throw in a keyboard and pen. $600 is a pretty big deal. It's like you can do a lot with that $600, even just for accessories and software. And it's a solid device. I have no issues with it. Now, in the review, I directly compared it to Surface Pro because I knew that's what people were going to ask. I would say in almost every way, the Surface Pro is technically better, right? The display is a little bit better. The battery life is better. Performance is better. The pen is better. But the HP excels in a lot of areas too. I would say the keyboard is better. You don't get Alcantara for some people who just don't like cloth. They want metal. This has a metal keyboard deck. It has a better rear camera at 13 megapixel. It gets better thermals in the sense that it can run hotter for longer durations. It could also get really too hot, but for people that don't want throttling as much, it still throttles just less. You can get this, and it's cheaper. And the thing is, this is the way computers should be, right? I should be able to go, the $1,800 one is actually a better device, but the $1,200 one is also a really good device that has no fatal flaws that most people will be happy with. And that's what we have here. And I think it's a really good option for people.
I mean, it looks stunning. I like the kickstand design. It's not the same as the Surface Pros in the sense that it's sort of all one. It's
right.
Like a little bar.
They call it a U kickstand. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really great. I mean, the device, it's got pen support as well. I mean, this is definitely the Surface Pro you should buy if you haven't got the money to buy a Surface Pro. But then again, I mean, I may be just because I don't like this form factor, but I don't see why you would want to buy a device like this, because it's like, just buy a laptop at this point if you're going to be, buying all the keyboard accessories and all that. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Someone's pointing out that E5 is the right one. It could be. I don't have an E5 because I can't go to a store and buy one of those. So it's like, I get it. It's sometimes nice to point out, and crowd-funded and sourced projects are really cool, and I'd be interested in covering the E5. But let's be honest, I can't go to Best Buy and buy that device. I can't go to a Microsoft store and buy that device, nor can I just order it online. So and the thing with eGPU support, okay. eGPU it's like Windows 10 S. It's just one of these things that's so niche. It's like, I don't know anyone that's using eGPUs. They're conceptually nice until you get the price tag and you see it's going to cost you another $500 to $1,000 to take advantage of an eGPU and still not have a full desktop experience. It's cool, but it's not, I don't know.
I see the Spectre doesn't have precision touchpad.
And so I keep driving home with HP about this. Every time I talk to them and we get our briefings, I'm like, does it have precision? They're like, no. I'm like, you should do that. Because they really make nice trackpads. I mean, their Spectre series they have longer trackpads. Look weird, but they actually are pretty functional. They're very smooth. The click is really nice on them. And for some reason, this one's using ELAN drivers, which is even more weird because they usually use Synaptics, and now they're using ELAN.
See, like they can't even use the excuse that we think Synaptics is better because it allows us to do more. Now they're just using ELAN. Like, they just don't care what's going on here.
Yeah. Now, you get the Windows 10 gestures and everything, and I think most people will be fine with it. I just know in using Precision, it could be better. And that's all I know. And I don't know why they're screwing around with this, because especially my other favorite device that they make is the EliteBook X360, which is a business device. Although I think a lot of people in our audience would benefit from it because it has a lot of cool security stuff in it. That one has an Alps trackpad with Precision. You can actually dynamically switch between the two, which is actually just even cooler, and because Precision is both a combo hardware and the software. I can pretty much tell you, I'm 90% sure that the trackpads they use in their Spectre series, hardware-wise, would qualify for Precision. It's the software they're not doing. Although I'm curious with the Precision, I don't know how Precision would handle a long trackpad, and I don't know if that comes into play. Maybe, but that seems like a problem they could solve. They could work with Microsoft.
I don't think it'd be that big of an issue for the Precision drivers. It's just that if you hit the edge of the screen for the edge of the trackpad, so what? I mean, I don't see what the problem would actually be with that. But I don't know. HP, you got to start using Precision, man. Microsoft are one day going to make it law, and then you're going to look stupid for not doing it. So just do it now.
Yeah. It's a running joke with me and HP because I'm the only one that keeps bringing it up. But they're everything else they're nailing. And this device is it's just fun to use. It's a really good display. The keyboard is probably one of its stronger points besides the value aspect. It has 1.5 millimeter key travel, which, to put in perspective, that's what the Surface laptop has. Surface Pro is 1.3 millimeters. And I know I'm just throwing out numbers, but essentially the higher the number is, the better. Now, there are limits. You don't want a 2 millimeter travel. It's probably a little too deep. You get that on some mechanical keyboards. But for a mobile device, that's a really good travel, and it's a really good typing experience. And that's, of course, super important on this kind of device. Battery life is okay. You're talking about 5.5, 6.5 hours around there, which is not ideal for 2017, but it's hardly terrible either. It's kind of what people are used to. It does have USB quick charge, so you can top it off very quickly. And the charger is really tiny. But it's a good device. I mean, for the value, I think, for saving $600, you're getting a lot of computer. And it's kind of cool to see companies do this. Dell has the 5285, I believe it's called, which is a Latitude. That's a business Surface. It looks exactly like a Surface Pro. There's another version, though. But these companies are doing some really good Surface clones, but retaining their own identity and bringing things that Microsoft may have missed. So the big thing with this device, of course, the Spectre, is it has 2 USB Type-Cs. Neither are Thunderbolt, which is a shame, but it does do 5 gigabit per second for data, display, and power. And it has no USB Type-A, so does the other extreme. They do give you a dongle in the box, which is cool, but you just got to remember to carry that dongle around. And this is one of those things. Personally speaking, I use USB Type-A way more than Type-C for peripherals. I would much rather have a Type-A and a Type-C. That's obviously the ideal world. But given a choice, if I only could go Type-A or only Type-C, at this time I would still choose only Type-A. If I have to use a thumb drive, I'm screwed. I do need that dongle,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of a big deal for people. But yeah.
You see, this is why I think Microsoft made the right choice going with USB-A for now. Because, I mean, you can argue all you want. USB-C may be the future, but we're in the now. And in the now, USB-A is still the dominant USB type around. And I know Microsoft says, but the Surface laptop's a 4-year device. Even in 4 years, I'm pretty sure that at least in 4 years' time, it'll be, I reckon, about 50-50 split. I don't reckon we'll still be, I don't reckon USB-C will be the entirely dominant USB peripheral, USB port by the time 4 years is up. I still feel like we'll be using USB-As for quite a bit longer.
Yeah, the problem is like we're literally right now in the transition stage, and Microsoft released a new device in the middle of that. So we're at that turning point where you could go either way, right? You could put a device of Type-C, and people would still buy it and still kind of get on with it, but still have like issues, or you could release of a Type-A and people buy it and get on with it and still have issues. So that's what makes it complicated. I agree in 2 years, this will be different. But corporations who have like masses of external drives and mice and projectors and, accessories that plug into their their client stuff are not going to suddenly go, oh, let's just go replace everything with Type-C because Type-C only matters for things like chargers and you could say displays, but even there, it's like certain scenarios of displays. If you need to do 4Ks at 60 frames per second, which again, companies aren't doing that. Like, I don't know any companies, like, unless you're in like engineering or artistry, or buying their employees 4K monitors. If you got a 1080p 23-inch monitor, congratulations. So yeah, we'll see what happens though. It'll happen eventually.
So speaking of HP and its awesome line of devices, the Elite X3 this week received a firmware update after months of nothing from HP. So that was a surprise. Unfortunately, we know nothing about the update. I literally just checked HP's own support forums where they usually post their change logs. Still nothing regarding this new update. But yeah, it rolled out alongside the updates that came out Tuesday, I think. So it was Patch Tuesday this week, by the way, which Microsoft rolled out a bunch of updates for current versions of Windows 10 where they fixed a lot of stuff. And mobile, which was fairly nice. But yeah, firmware update for Elite X3. Good to see that they at least still care about it. The only OEM on the planet who seems to care about Windows 10 Mobile right now. It is funny because actually, just a couple of weeks ago, HP UK uploaded a couple of Elite X3, I guess, ads, maybe? I don't know what you call them, where they're sort of like, here's the Elite X3, here's what it can do. It has all of this good stuff, blah, blah, blah. So they're still sort of pushing it, which is a surprise. But I guess that ties into Microsoft's work that with HP that they're doing for the enterprise stuff, which I believe Donna mentioned on Twitter recently. So, I mean, when we find out what the changelog is for this update, we will be sure to post it on our website, of course. I'm hoping that they improve the camera stuff. I mean, so far, we've both installed this firmware update. It feels like, we haven't noticed anything new. There's none of that stuff that they were testing previously. If you remember, cast your minds back to late 2016, I'd written something about HP's internal firmware, which added a bunch of new features to Windows 10 Mobile, such as like an iris preview on the lock screen, where if you were using the iris scanning function on the HP Elite X3 and looked at the lock screen, you could actually see your eyes. It would turn the camera on and you could see like a portion where your eyes were looking, which looked great. And it would be so you could line it up correctly and it would log you in straight away. That never came to Windows 10 Mobile, apparently because of some things that Microsoft said to HP, like, yeah, we not really. We don't want that. But
yeah, they don't want them changing things too much, I guess.
Because no one else is going to change it, so
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is an argument that falls on deaf ears right now.
So yeah, but yeah, at least HP is still pushing out updates, which gives us some hope.
That's the first firmware update since February, and it sounds like we're like nagging on HP, but meanwhile, this is the sixth firmware update in a year.
Yeah,
because we're coming up on a year, and so they've been on pretty consistent with doing almost every month and a half, 2 months, doing a firmware update. Looks like they took a break, but as you mentioned, Donna Sarkar, talked about how they're working with HP, supposedly on enterprise stuff, and this may be that. Although we don't see, I have it now on Fast Ring, and obviously, I don't see any new functionality, and so far HP hasn't said much. It was sort of a bigger firmware bump in numbers than we usually get, so presumably there's stuff in there, but their silence is actually kind of interesting because HP usually does post a change log. Hey, we made the camera faster, the autofocus does this now, and they didn't this time, which if you want to put your tinfoil hats on, maybe it's stuff that's not announced yet that's coming, or they're laying the groundwork for something. Who knows? It is kind of weird that they haven't talked about it.
Yeah, curiously as well, usually when they roll out a firmware update, they'll also update their FFU images with the Windows Device Recovery tool. They haven't done that this time. Usually what they'll do is, with the last 6 at least, they would they compile the FFU with the new firmware and whichever the latest production ring build is. So in the case of the previous firmware, of course, the Elite X3 launched with build 10586, which was the November update, Threshold 2. And that had its firmware. But then when the anniversary update rolled out, they updated their firmwares with their FFUs with new firmware and the anniversary update, which was great because that means now I don't have to go back to 10586 and do the whole long process of upgrading to the anniversary update just to update to the creators update, which is what 950 users have to do. But this time they haven't done the thing where they roll up the firmware and the latest build, which I assume would be the creators update. Right. Maybe they will still. I mean, it's only has been out for a few days, but who knows?
Yeah, usually that kind of happens. So we'll be kind of tracking that, I suppose, and see what happens. But Yeah, who knows? Speaking of mobile, the other last device, the Alcatel Idol, which I'm charging mine up right here. Let's see, it's almost done. It is now in Europe. It came to Germany. Oh, look, it's all charged up. And now you're getting it in the UK. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it went up for pre-order this week in the UK, France, and Germany. It'll be launching July 26th, and it is coming to these countries, to Europe, I guess, as the Alcatel Idol 4 Pro. So it's changed its name. It's no longer the Alcatel Idol 4S. It's the Alcatel Idol 4 Pro. Slightly different name change. I don't know why they decided to do that. Of course, it'll have all the correct bands for each country that you use it in, so you shouldn't have any compatibility issues with carriers and whatever else.
I remember when we saw some internal references to this device, and we're like, "Oh, the Pro! Ooh, this is gonna be awesome!" Like they got another device coming out, and then we saw the specs. I'm like, those specs seem kind of familiar, and we started comparing. Like, wait, this is just the same device.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh. All right, but it's a really good phone. I know you wrote this article saying people shouldn't buy it, and it's
I'll talk about that in a sec.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, go on, say what you was going to say.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it's such a nice phone though, because I got it right in front of me. I'm actually installing, I believe, the latest fast ring onto it, and the hardware of this device is just so good. I love the display on it. The camera, yeah, it's a mediocre camera, but obviously, if you're a Lumia user, you're not going to be excited about it. I think it's below what a 2017 camera should be on these devices. Although maybe if you're from an iPhone, you might think it's the bee's knees, because apparently iPhones take the best photos in the world.
They don't. They physically don't. But
yeah, it's for the price. Alcatel has done a really nice job here, and I know you'll talk about people shouldn't buy this phone, but I would also say if you're really still hooked on Windows 10 Mobile and you're just like, I don't want to leave this, I still think this is a good choice. But there is this lingering what's happening.
So this is where my article comes in. So today I did write an article, quite a negative one if you're a Windows Phone fan, which basically says don't buy the Alcatel 4 Pro. And that's not because the 4 Pro is a bad phone. In fact, as Dan said, in fact, this device is an amazing phone. It is a last year phone. Technically, it is a Snapdragon 820 with 4 gigs of RAM and only a 1080p display, whatever. But it's still a great phone, and it is. Some would say maybe on sale for a little bit more than it should be, considering it is a phone from last year. But that all aside, the phone itself is a great phone. The problem with the phone is that it's coming with Windows 10 Mobile. Now, this means nothing to Alcatel. Alcatel have different versions of this phone all over the place that run all sorts of different things and whatever. So if nobody buys the mobile version, they're not really going to care all that much. The reason I'm saying don't buy this phone is because of Microsoft and Microsoft's inability to communicate with its fans and the public about its plans for mobile. As we all know, Windows 10 Mobile is in a really odd position right now. Its future is uncertain, although Microsoft continues to say they're committed to mobile. Actions speak louder than words, and so far we've seen no action on the mobile side of things. This past week, Microsoft received an insider preview build with 3 fixes that nobody really cares about, and it didn't even receive a build last week. So that's how much. And the build they rolled out this week's 2 weeks old. That build was compiled 2 weeks ago internally. So this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. This phone has an uncertain future based on the fact that Microsoft is unable to comment on its plans for Windows 10 Mobile. And that may be because there are no plans for Windows 10 Mobile. Microsoft's next attempt at mobile won't be a thing that comes to existing phones, in which case buying this phone would be a terrible idea, because you're only going to get a year or so support out of the device, and even then you're not getting any new features or anything exciting. You're just getting on the phone, and every so often you'll get bug fixes for bugs that you aren't even running into anymore, because Windows 10 Mobile as it is okay for most people. So if you're buying this device, and I do in the article I do say this, there is a group of people out there who should buy this device, and it's those of you who are Windows Phone fans who refuse to give up on this platform and who are tired of the Lumia 950. I'm in that same boat. The Lumia 950 and the 950 XL, I'm done with them. They are devices that have run their course for me. I'm sick and tired of its plastic body and hot body when it's charging.
The day they came out, like they got better 6 months later, but even by then it was still like hardware was. I mean, we could just talk about how good the camera, and the camera is still surprisingly really, really good. But Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're a camera person, then maybe have second thoughts. But I'm not a camera person. I when I take photos, I don't care what I'm taking it with, as long as I can take the photo. And I'm not somebody who does photos often. So
you don't have cats, that's why.
I don't have cats. That's true.
When you have cats, you're always taking pictures of them.
But yeah, so the Alcatel Idol 4 Pro, great phone. If you're just a normal dude or gal or somebody out there who wants a new phone and you're looking at the Alcatel Windows 10, don't do it, because you are going to likely be burned by Microsoft in a year's time when they come out with their Surface phone or whatever, running this all new version of Windows 10 Mobile.
Alternatively, though, if you're just going to get a phone anyway, so you got an Android phone and say they come out with this like killer new device in 2018, like you'd still be out money.
You're entirely correct, but... at least on an Android phone, you would still have support and apps and stuff that extend beyond the unveiling of the new Surface phone, whereas Microsoft, I imagine Microsoft will be quite quick to drop any sort of ties with Windows 10 Mobile once it's got its new platform going, like they did with Windows Phone 7, Windows RT, and everything before it. So I'm not too confident. I mean, Microsoft, there's an easy way to fix this, and it please me, the fans, and I'm sure Alcatel and HP. Just make a post on one of the Windows blogs. I don't care which one. It could be some really obscure one for all I give a damn about. Just come out and say, right, Windows 10 Mobile, as it is, will not be, after a year's time, we will be switching on to a new sort of project where we'll be launching on new phones, whatever. Or you can come out and say, Windows 10 Mobile, the HP Helix 3, the Alcatel Idol 4S, whatever, will be getting updates for next year, throughout next year and into 2018, 2019, which would tell us that, of course, we are getting whatever Microsoft is trying next. But this silence that Microsoft has right now it's bewildering. It's unheard of, really, I feel.
Well, there definitely have not been many companies that are put in this position.
I mean, it's not really a position. Just be honest. You can say, sure, Windows 10 Mobile isn't dead. They're still releasing Insider Preview builds. They're still doing, adding enterprise features. But that doesn't mean anything. I think a lot of companies have this policy of not specifically. No, I don't know. I don't know many companies that put out press releases or announcements that they're quitting or something. Even BlackBerry. I don't know. I have to research this, and I'd love if someone knew this answer. Did BlackBerry ever go, hey, that BB10 thing, we're just gonna, that didn't work out, it was a bad idea, so we're going Android. And I mean, they did announce they're going Android, but they didn't say, oh, BB10 is done too. All that money we invested in that OS is gone. Right, but they still do updates for BB10, I believe. I believe they're still doing.
Well, I imagine they have some security stuff, which they probably do, but not anything feature wise. I think if they do it in a sense they have. But
then here comes the argument. But they allow Android apps to run on that platform, so they're all good anyway. And I mean, if Android apps ran on Windows 10 Mobile, I would be I don't think
that worked out for them, or was a good experience. But right. It was, in theory, you can run an Android app on a BlackBerry. I don't know. I get what you're totally saying.
I understand that this is an unprecedented sort of scenario for a company like Microsoft, because think about it. Apple and Google, they have their own mobile platforms which have major releases once a year. It's on the dot almost every time. I think it's May or June, Google has their Google I/O event where they announce all the new Android features, the next update, and Apple has theirs in June, I believe. So they do that every single year. TikTok on the dot. Microsoft's sort of patchiness when it comes to Windows 10 Mobile, because it's tied to Windows 10. So whenever they have an event, it's usually Windows 10's the front and center. Oh, and then here's some of these things that Windows 10 Mobile will be getting. But that hasn't even been the case since, I think, Windows 10 launched. I don't think they've had an event where they brought out a Windows Phone on stage, apart from the 950 launch, of course, where they were like, here's some new features coming to Windows 10 Mobile. They did that at Build 2015. Just before the Windows 10 launched, right. And they did that at the January event in 2015, but they haven't done that since. That's right. 2 years since Microsoft actually got up on stage and said, hey, here's our mobile platform, here's some stuff we're working on for it.
You know why? They got burned with Jessica Alba and the kids corner thing.
Yeah.
That whole... they used to do that stuff. And they're probably just tired of it. They're like, we keep doing it. We get celebrities and just never worked out. They probably just want this to slowly fade away and people forget about it. And I think that's
right. But I know it's unlikely for a company to just say that. But even just someone, we need to know. Someone in the comments just said, yeah, Donna answered a question about Windows Mobile this week. And she was like, what depends what you mean by feature. Because someone said, are there any features coming to Windows Mobile?
And she said that we're continuing to, they're using this ambiguous, we're developing and making stuff
for
mobile
which means nothing. It doesn't mean anything about Windows Mobile. It means Windows 10 on tablets and small laptops. Again,
because they want to get away from this concept of a phone, at least calling it a phone in that sense, But yeah,
surely it's cheeky for Microsoft to be putting up the Alcatel Idol 4 Pro on their own stores, charging almost £500 for it in the UK at least. And then in a year's time going, oh, by the way, that thing that you bought less than a year ago at this point, we're done with that. We're now focusing on this platform that's coming to these devices instead. That's not cool, is it?
Yeah, but I guess I don't see many companies going, hey, buy this thing that'll be, because then is it obsolete in a year? No, it still works. It still runs the same UWP apps. I don't know. It's definitely, I totally get what you're saying. At the same time, I feel like there's 10 of us debating this right now.
No, you're right. Again, this is the tech bubble problem. This is definitely
this is like a discussion we could have had like a year ago, which would have been way more relevant. But now it's like, I don't care enough about Windows Phone users. They hit me up on Twitter. I'm like, dude, just let it go. Time. Like, it's time to move on. Like, it's a thing. You can buy, if you really want the Alcatel, go get it. It's a great phone. It still makes calls. You can do email. You can do text on it. You can browse the web. It's like, it's what it does. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm just bored of this topic. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but it's Microsoft's fault that we're bored of that topic, but
yeah,
it's just still a thing. And you've got to realize that Windows Central, a lot of our readers are Windows Phone users still, who are pretty upset at Microsoft's current treating of its mobile platform.
Someone brought up LinkedIn. So Zach and I were talking about this. LinkedIn, where 98% of the conversations on social media about LinkedIn is like, I hate LinkedIn. Would you like to be part of my network? Quit spamming me. It's literally one of the most annoying services that everybody has to have, because if you're a professional, you're just on LinkedIn, but no one actually likes or uses LinkedIn. But as soon as the app goes away, all of a sudden people are like, why can't I have this thing that's annoying the hell out of me all the time? I don't know. I just found it funny. So no one really wants a LinkedIn app. I don't think. I don't think anyone wants LinkedIn, but
as somebody who, not me, but I imagine somebody who has to use LinkedIn if they use a Windows phone and they realize there's no LinkedIn app, they go, oh, yes, there's no LinkedIn app. I don't have to install it.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, boss, I can't install it. Oh, what a shame. But no. Looking on the bright side of all of this negativity regarding mobile, at least Microsoft is working on another version of Windows Phone that will be, I imagine, launching on whatever their Surface phone is, whatever they want to call it. That is good news, at least for us, for fans who will be buying whatever Microsoft throws us anyway. Microsoft can literally stab us in the heart and then say, oh, here's this new thing. I'll go, oh, thanks. And then we'll take it with open arms, because that's just what we do as fans.
Well, it is up to them to make a device that people want to buy, regardless of past positions, Right. And for people who are like, I swear I'll never buy anything again from them, it's like, well, that's totally a legit position. At the same time, it's up to them. Like, their goal is now to create a device that you will backtrack on that statement. And frankly, any company could technically do that. Apple could still create an iPhone and I'll be like, okay, now that's game changing, This is what's cool about tech, we don't know what's coming next and where it's going. And it's going to be a very exciting time. I think tech is only going to accelerate dramatically. It's funny because I get into debates all the time with people on Reddit who are like, the Surface Pro throttles. And I'm like, yeah, every single laptop throttles, actually, even gaming laptops, if they get hot enough. But people don't appreciate, we have a fanless Core i5 Surface now, there's some of the stuff that's coming out, where that's on the market right now today. It's just such impressive technology that just 5 years ago was the goal, was the dream. We talk about laptops, and it's just like, today's laptops are the laptops you wanted 5 years ago. All those complaints you had about battery life, portability, and all the stuff for the heat and the fans, it's all gone, and they fixed it all. It's like, I don't know. I'm very psyched about tech because there's a lot of money now going into it, and a lot of money means a lot of research. There's a lot of breakthroughs going on in it, and it's going to be it's a good time to follow this stuff. If you don't want to be a Windows 10 phone user, totally fine. There's lots of really good options on the market.
See, I'm in a unique position, I guess, in the sense that I want all of my eggs to be in one basket. I want it all to be in the Microsoft ecosystem, including my phone, because I just think it's just so annoying having, Windows 10 PC, laptop, tablet, server, whatever else people have running Windows 10 these days, Xbox, and then having an Android phone. It's like, why? This is the anomaly in my life. I can't have you. I must have a Windows-based phone. And
it really is about that. And this is where when they talk about the hand-off stuff, that's where I really do like this idea of I'm at my PC right now and I grab my phone and walk out. I pick up what I was doing there without, proactively engaging that stuff, right? It just comes back to me. I really like that concept of, even with, simple things. This is why people have that marker thing for Twitter, where it picks up where you left off on another device. Like, there's a reason why people like those kind of services, and that's sort of where I think this stuff should go. But yeah, the lock and stuff, Apple's known that for years. So
I mean, Apple users who are tied into the Apple ecosystem are happy that they have everything they need. They've got the apps, they've got the hardware, they've got the connection, the experience between their phone and their Mac. They've got iMessage on the PC and FaceTime and stuff.
People are complaining now because they're starting to say all that stuff is starting to break down. So,
well, that's just because Apple aren't a software company. That's right. They're just bad at software. But they've got it all. And quickly rounding back to my original point of the Alcatel and it not buying it. Although I'm saying not to buy this phone, I will be buying it because I'm that person who needs a Windows phone in their life. And as I say in the article, if you are that person, then go ahead, you'll love this phone. But if you're somebody who may be money conscious or who can't afford to buy a phone every few months or every year or so, then obviously be careful, because it would be unfair and unreasonable for me to recommend a Windows phone to you with the platform's uncertainty right now. That's basically what I was trying to say in the article.
But can you hack Android onto it? God, I never want to answer those questions again. Okay, I'm sticking with laptops for now. Anyway, we're just over an hour. We're going over 5 minutes, which we shouldn't have, because
this was important. Ranty. It was worth the 5 minutes.
Yes. So tune in next week. We've got a bunch of stuff planned. I still got to do gaming on Surface Laptop and Surface Pro, which I just got to figure out time on how to do that. And a few other articles. Oh, that's right. I got a review for, and I'll show these quickly because they're so cool. The new Razer Thresher headphones. They're plugged in right now. Actually, I don't need to, but they're charging. These are actually wireless. And they're gaming headsets. And I really love it. It's got the microphone that comes in and out of it, which is just super clever. I know other gaming headphones do that too, but these are just about to come onto the market. They were announced at E3, and they're really, really good. I've been actually using them on the Microsoft Gaming Libations podcast, which we do on Thursdays. But I'll be reviewing those if you want. They work with Xbox One and your Windows 10 PC. They are full Dolby Digital, huge, speakers, all that stuff. But pay attention to that review. I'll get my facts in order. And a couple other things. I'll probably maybe do another device or two. I got a lot of laptops and stuff to review as well. Zach, anything exciting from you for next week?
Yes. I actually prepared myself for this part of the podcast this week. I am reviewing the Fusion 5 lap book. Now, this is a thing that I came across recently, and it's basically a 14-inch sub $250, I guess. I bought it for less than 200 quid in the UK. A sub $250 laptop with a full HD screen. That is almost unheard of for low-end laptops. So this is an Intel Atom based. It's not very powerful, obviously, for the price you pay, but it's got a full HD screen, which is really exciting, and it's 14 inches, which is also really exciting. It's a full-size laptop, I'd say. It's not like a 12-inch or a 10-inch tiny thing that you can barely see running, sub HD screen, whatever you want to call it. This is an actual fully sized laptop that has a full HD display, which I'm very excited about. So I'll be reviewing that next week. First impressions, I guess some now. It feels great. It's not metal, it's plastic. It looks metal though. Trackpad's surprisingly okay. Keyboard's not bad. Speakers are terrible. Also, it does go to sleep, but the speakers emit a white noise constantly when it's in sleep mode and when it's awake as well. I don't know if you can hear it. but it's there. It's a very
I hear you thumping it.
Yeah, it's a very subtle white noise, and you can hear it. It sounds like a little fan if you put your ear up to it. But it is sleeping right now, so I don't know if the white noise coming out of the speakers would drain battery. Maybe it would. I guess Dan might know more about that than me. But yeah, that might be an issue. I don't know how we're going to go about that. I'm going to do a clean install of Windows to see if that fixes it. But if not, then who knows. But yeah, so far, superb device for the price you pay. The screen was super great. Full HD just looks great on 14 inches. So
yeah, I have the Chewy lap book. Someone mentioned Chewy in comments, which I have to review. I just got to find the time. I'll probably start looking at it this week and get something going, probably for the following Tuesday. But yeah, that's a really cool device too. Chewy's one of those companies that, I know some people don't like their support, but I mean, come on, you're buying a laptop for like $300. Like, but it's impressive hardware for $300. It's really kind of cool stuff. So it's really nice to see people being able to get that same experience. Again, their display is really nice. It's a 3x2. And it feels like the same kind of panel that they used to use in Surface. So I think what's happening is these companies are finding in China where Microsoft gets their stuff manufactured, and they're starting to get their scraps, which also works out for.
Quickly worth noticing, I think Fusion 5 are a UK-based company because it says designed by Fusion 5 in the UK, assembled in China. So maybe they're UK-based, which is surprising to say the least. I thought this was a Chinese-based company, but who knows?
Well, it gets all, who knows how that works. We should start a PC company. But there we go. Tune in to that for next week for our coverage. Of course, we'll be back next Friday for our podcast as usual. And you can tune in on Thursdays where we do the Microsoft Gaming Libations with me, Zach, and Jez. And we'll be talking about video games, playing video games, giving away codes, and doing all sorts of cool stuff. I actually did join this week a little bit late, but because of internet issues. But make sure you check that out. Thank you everybody for listening. We'll be doing questions and comments for the live podcast right now, so stick around if you want to ask us a few things. Otherwise, we'll talk to you later. Take care, everybody. Yeah.